Well, that's really exciting that you're going to have someone else come on your podcast.
Yeah, I hope it is. I hope it'll be good.
And it has to be someone that's not I think what works with Justin to me is he's not afraid to hurt my feelings, or he's not afraid to be really bluntly honest, which most of the time I so appreciate.
If you knew the things I don't say.
Yeah.
My husband says the same thing.
Have you ever had someone say, you just don't have a filter? I'm like, oh, I have such a filter. Believe me.
You have no idea.
You don't know what I'm not saying. Yeah.
My filter is on fine sand. You're not even getting the clumpy, weird remarks I could be making.
Yep.
But that's what my husband said the one time. I was like, he's like, I could be saying so many more things. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to know.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyway, well, we're thrilled to have you here today.
Are we recording?
We do a little bit of a chat that we like. We have a cold open, which is just where we cut this down to like a minute and a half of whatever we're talking about. Okay. And then I say, Jennifer, are you ready to actually get started with this podcast, or you just want to hang out all day?
And sometimes I'm like, no.
But talk about whatever you want to talk about. I'm just going to follow your lead and just kind of banter back and forth.
Oh, cool. I love
Or whatever you want me to do.
See? Now that's the attitude I'm looking for, Justin. Yeah. That's the attitude. Okay, let's get started.
Hello, and welcome to the Almost Amazing podcast from the CityRise Network. Hosted by Jennifer Dennis and produced by me, Justin Kello. We're a podcast that was supposed to be focused on parenting, but we've kind of lost the plot along the way. Honestly, we don't know what this podcast is about, but we talk to incredible people who love Jesus, and our hope is to provide encouragement and fun whenever possible. If our lack of clear direction bothers you, we apologize, but no one is making you listen to this podcast, unless you're married to Jennifer. Andy, thanks for listening.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Almost Amazing podcast. We're excited to have you today. Thank you for joining us. We have an incredible guest and a great show planned. First of all, for the first time this year.
No.
Second?
Yes.
Third, maybe. Welcome, Justin.
We did an entire show devoted to our word of the year. How do you forget that we just... Jeez Louise.
Well,
yes. So
hey, Justin.
It is not the first one of the year, but it's our first guest of the year. So maybe that's why you're confused. It's the first time.
It is our first guest of the year. Yeah. So you guys are.
Yeah, it's going to be great. You should be excited. We're good. You know, we're back to school and we love that. We love that routine and that schedule.
Exactly.
Yeah, I will say Christmas was, it was only 2 weeks, but it felt like a year. I don't know for you as your kids adult, it's probably not the same, but
I think because of where Christmas fell this year, it really landed to where you really celebrated Christmas at the very beginning of the break.
Yes.
And then you have like 2 weeks of.
That's what it was.
And I want to say.
That's what it was.
When that happens, in the beginning, you're like, just get Christmas together. Let's get it all taken care of. And then from then on to the point that they go back to school, it is a complete devolving of every routine that you've put in place for these children's entire lives.
Yeah.
And by the beginning, you're like, we're going to still keep to our good waking up schedule. Yeah. We're not going to do phones. We're going to be outdoors. And by the end, they're not getting up until 10. They're staying up till 1 a.m. Yep. They're eating snacks all day.
I was tempted to email my son's teacher and be like, hey, listen, he has gone feral in 2 weeks. I'm so sorry. You've put in so much work with him for the past 4 or 5 months. You're going back to ground zero. Like he has regressed entirely.
We're coming to your house tomorrow. You're much better at this than we are.
So God bless kindergarten teachers in particular, because I feel like they probably have a very special unraveling. They have to like wind back
and the kids come back, they're emotional. They're back on track, and you're like back in order.
But I do have exciting news. So there's a book called 100 Men on Becoming a Dad.
Wait, what is it called? 100 Men
on Becoming a Dad.
Okay.
I think that's what it's called. I don't have my phone with me. But what they did was they asked 100 men, kind of a survey. They gave them basically like 20 or 30 questions. They pick out your favorites and answer these questions. And so they did this for me. They sent it to me 4 or 5 months ago. And I was like, sure, whatever. Like, great. I was like, I'd love to, share insight that I have. But the book finally was released at the beginning of January. So like, it's a real book on Amazon you can buy that I'm in. It like has my picture.
That's amazing, Justin.
Yeah. So there's 100 guys they asked. I was one of them. Obviously if you buy it, I don't get any money. I did it for free, but it is kind of like the whole gamut. So there's people, I don't know, haven't read the whole thing. So you may not get great advice, but my section has great advice. But it was such a cool thing to like get
Justin,
this
I'm
book,
so proud
like
of
a
you.
physical thing. And I didn't even do it's this person basically worked there tail off to like get all these guys to submit. So they did all the work, but it's just neat to like hold something like, oh, I'm in this, and maybe somebody will read it and be encouraged in a different format than what I've been doing on social media. So
congratulations.
It's pretty cool. You know,
to be a contributor
for your birthday this year. You'll be getting a copy of that book. So
because you got some free ones. You got a few for free.
No.
Well, congratulations. That's really exciting.
That's exciting. Anything exciting with you?
No, not anything at that level where I'm in a book. I was, it's funny. There's a medication I'm on that makes me, this is completely unrelated, but you ask how we're doing. I'm on a little bit of this medication that makes me crave apples. And
is that a listed side effect?
Okay. I'm looking online, and a lot of the people that are on this medication are all craving apples.
Wow.
There's not, when I talked to my doctor about it, I said, hey, listen, I've got a pretty clear apple problem. And he said, oh, maybe it's, your blood sugar's dropping a little bit. Maybe you want an apple, or maybe it's the fiber. And I'm like, oh, okay. And that was probably about 6 months ago. But now, like, I have to have I really desire about at least 2 apples, sometimes up to 4 or 5 apples a day. And they have to be salted.
Do you eat 4 or 5 apples a day?
Some days I will eat 4 or 5 apples.
Do you just have like a bag in your office, or like how do you bring them in a purse?
Well, I usually keep my habit at home.
Oh, so it's good that we're now back at the office. So I'm sure over Christmas break this is a problem.
What's really funny, like, so here's the part that I want to share with you is when I went home seeing all my family, I'm at some point in the day cutting up, peeling an apple, cutting into slices, lightly salting it, and then eating this apple. Yeah. My whole family is watching me, and they all have to go get apples. They're like, oh, can I have one of your apples?
Yeah.
I'm like, sure, have one of my Honey Crisp apples that are like so much money.
Yeah.
But I talked to my mom yesterday, and she goes, well, we're having to go buy apples.
So you got the whole family on it.
Because they're all
Oh.
But I have to have the Honey Crisp at HEB. It is delicious.
There are worse things to be addicted to.
And there's so many kinds of apples.
This is a great question we can ask at the end of one of our interviews is what apple are you most committed to?
Have we already asked that?
No.
You think people really, well, it's not this
Absolutely. Show. Every single person I think has an apple when they're shopping, at least, that this is the apple.
Well, let me just say this. Honey Crisp is the Louis Vuitton of apples. It's expensive.
Okay.
It's incredible quality. It's a classic. Yeah. It's overpriced.
I get Gala apples. That's my go-to because they're so crisp. Like Red Delicious are like mush. It's just like
Red Delicious is like what your mom would put in your lunchbox.
Red Delicious is great marketing for a terrible product.
Red Delicious. Red Delicious does not have to be that big to be that mediocre. Sorry, Red Delicious. No. I feel like we've really.
But I think everybody has an apple that they are committed to. I do think there's a
Granny Smith crowd that's pretty set.
Very unique, small. Small group of people.
I actually love Granny Smith.
But it's not the apple that you buy.
It is not the apple of mine.
But you'll take one.
And I used to be Granny Smith, but I have gone full on Honey Crisp. So yesterday I'm checking out at HEB, and this guy's like checking out all my apples because it's so many. And he's like, we really need to talk about an apple budget.
Yeah.
Like, no. Yeah. That's really what I want to eat is apples. Wow. I don't want to talk about it. But I told the gentleman, I said, hey, listen, do yourself a favor and do not start on Honey Crisp. Yeah. Start somewhere down.
A cheaper addiction. Yeah.
Golden Delicious. Mm-hmm. They even like have another kind of crisp apple. Man, if anybody's actually listening to this podcast, do you think they are still?
I don't know, but they have the trash apples that come in a bag. I don't know why.
Yes.
It's like their only value is they come in
Some people are really into Fuji, but I think they just like the name of Fuji.
I couldn't tell you what a Fuji apple tastes like.
Then there's like a knockoff of Honey Crisp, and you have to really know that's not Honey Crisp. Yeah. Like Sweet Crisp or something lame like that. No. Anyway, I say all that to say, I think I'm about to have to get a side job to cover my apple
Do you have a Costco membership? I don't think you can buy them in bulk. Save some money.
Okay, no, we don't. Every year we think, should we get a Costco membership?
For 3 people. No.
For 3 people?
About to be 2.
Right? No. So no, we don't have a Costco membership.
That's fair.
And we do have a Sam's membership, but they don't have the level of HEB's Honey Crisp. There's something different. My sister came in town to visit us. She went to HEB and she comes back to my house and she's like, I love that place, HEB.
And this is someone who lives in a Publix world, and Publix has a lot of like devoted people.
She said, I love HEB so much. I'm like, Tell me about it.
We all do.
Tell me about it.
So my wife missed the most when we lived in Virginia. She's like, there's nothing like
I've got to
HEB.
get back to an HEB.
Yep.
So all of that to say, I'm here. I'm not eating an apple through the show.
Oh, can you imagine if you were crunching on an apple right now? I would be on fire. I would be like, what?
I've tried to stop all of my annoying habits with my noises. Today, welcome our speaker, returning guest for the women's retreat this year, Laura Seifert.
Yay, Seifert, but whatever. It doesn't matter. I'll answer to anything.
You know, it's funny.
That was really rude that I corrected you.
No, I love it.
It's perfect.
I love it because literally I talked on the phone to Kristen. I was like, Seifert. She goes, Seifert. I go, got it. I will never forget that.
Never.
Until tomorrow.
Listen, I answer to anything. I'm just glad you called.
Well, we're thrilled to have you back on the show.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here. It's good to see you guys.
Well, since we talked, you have started your own podcast.
I have.
So tell us, what is it like for you? Have you enjoyed being a podcaster?
Well, yes, I have. So here's the thing. The podcast is called It's Like This, Conversations with Laura Seifert. And this sounds way bougier than it is. My agent, which I got, she was like, here's the thing. You have to have another, besides just teaching, Laura, you have to have something else that's kind of like a product. Like if it's Instagram followers, if it's a podcast, and social media, I'm not great at social media. So I said, okay, I'll start a podcast. So I did. And it turns out I really do enjoy it. I love talking to people. And we were just talking, Jennifer, the thing that I'm trying to find is my groove, though, in this space, in a podcast space.
Right. It's hard to find that. And a lot of people don't feel very comfortable being so verbose, so talkative, so energetic. And so you have to find people who bring energy with their voice.
Yep.
And that's where they feel comfortable. Because, I mean, Justin and I talk about it all the time. We'll have some guests that come on and you're like, wow, it's almost like you push go.
Yes.
And they're like, and they have all this information, all this, and you're like, thanks for coming. And some people you're like, so if you'll just tell us a little bit more, we're about 3 minutes in.
Please don't answer yes or no anymore. Like, toss the ball back.
A little bit more detail.
Exactly.
And so it really matters who you're on the show with.
Yeah. And I'm learning, I love talking to people. I love hearing their stories. When you turn the mic on, all of a sudden, I'm trying to figure out how to best interview people. But because I would sit and talk all day about whatever. And then my listeners, some of them, especially my board of directors, are like, it took you way too long to get to the point. Like, don't ask so many questions or jump right in. Just all of these little nuances that I'm just trying to pick up on and learn.
You can fix that in editing, though, too.
Well, true. And then my communications director, God bless her, was spending way too much time editing for what we pay her. And I was like, don't edit. Do work on this. Don't spend your time on that.
That's fair.
You know, it's funny that you say that because we don't have a directing board that says things to us. So here we are.
Listen.
We're like 5-year-olds dancing for their parents.
We don't get feedback. We don't want it.
Look at you guys still dancing in the living room. We're like, we're so good at this, dancing in the living room. So I don't know that we're getting actual
feedback from our superiors.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I think sometimes they listen.
I like your podcast. Keep going.
When they're on.
So
who are you talking to in your podcast? Like, I know that your ministry is focused on women. Is it a women's podcast? Like, what is
No,
what is
it's
it?
not. So the heartbeat behind the podcast is just finding or discovering God in surprising, unexpected ways and places.
Okay.
So it's a arm or a view or a lens of discipleship that is not teaching, which is what I do, is I teach the Bible. And so I wanted to help listeners just discover God in ways they wouldn't expect. So I talked to people, like I had a good friend of mine on that is a movie connoisseur. How do you discover God in the movies? What have you seen? What do you like? And so conversations like that. What was it? This summer I took kids to Young Life Camp in Colorado. As a 50-year-old, got on a bus, slept on a bus, and my good friend went with me. And so we had a podcast. We didn't expect we would find God at all. We thought we would just die physically trying to take
these,
and keep these children alive, out of trouble.
And we were so surprised with the different ways we personally saw God there. So it's kind of like that, Justin.
I love that because
random.
Listen, for so long, the Christian podcast space was just dominated by teaching.
Yes.
It was sermons recorded, which is great. I love a good sermon. But when you like Googled or searched in your podcast app, Christian podcast, it was a million teachings. I'm just like, guys, I love teaching, but like, can I just get somebody hanging out that's a Christian? That, you know, that was kind of when we talked about making this podcast, was like, we really wanted it to be a hangout. Like, we didn't want it to be a presentation. We tell people that too. People come in with their papers like, this is all. I'm like, this isn't a presentation.
They come with the same. I'm like, put your notes down. Yeah. Let's just let this be fluid. And I thought, you know, when Jesus was in his ministry, he would say, well, the kingdom of God, well, it's like this. It's like a mustard seed. And he's talking to farmers. And so that's kind of my heart too, is like, it's like this. It's like you can find him anywhere if you'll just kind of train your eye to look.
Well, I love that is the bigger picture. It is a teaching of finding God. He's everywhere. You have to learn to look. Speaking of teaching, our ladies love your teaching. They're excited that you're coming back.
Yay.
They love that you have it's so practical, it's deep, it's applicable, it's meaningful. You're just one of our favorite speakers.
Thank you.
And you're coming back.
I can't wait.
It is Let It Go, which opens kind of a weird discussion for Justin and me, because Let It Go, obviously, from Frozen.
Well, yes. When Kristen called me and said, we've changed the theme, it's Let It Go, I started singing it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's hard not to. Justin prefers the second Frozen.
Stop.
And he will die.
Have you seen it?
He will die on that hill.
The second one has so much deep, like it got me through the pandemic. I'm just saying, man,
Justin,
it's got a lot.
I'm just going to be real honest with you.
Listen,
I think being a bigger fan of the second Frozen means you may be new age.
Incredible, meaningful, like adult applicable teachings in that. Like the moment where, you know, Sven comes in and saves Anna. And
I don't even remember the second one. That's how I know I saw it because my
doing the next right thing, like when
Laura,
things are
you
hard,
saw it just like I did one time.
Wow.
And done.
I think I've seen it 15 times.
But the original one, the first one, how many times did we see it? Because probably our daughters are similar. How old is your daughter?
My daughter's 17.
My daughter is 15, and so similar age. When that came out, it was targeted to our kids
and
at their age.
All we did. She was a little on the older end of it. No, little on the older end. So it would have hit your daughter.
But she probably knew every word.
Square in the heart.
Yeah, boy did it.
All that to say, the second one is better, but the theme is Let It Go. And so it's so
my husband's like,
we're gonna
what
let it
is
go.
this? And the theme of the women's retreat is Let It Go.
And it doesn't help that there's snow on the advertising.
I go, Andy, it's not even related. He goes, there's snow on the advertising. I
have not seen that advertisement yet.
Maybe related. So when you hear Let It Go, what do you think? What does that bring up as we move into this?
Well,
event?
I think when I think of it in this context of a women's retreat, I think of releasing that which hinders you and letting it go. You know, the phrase, let it go and let God, that we get so tired of hearing because it feels trite. It really is true. And so I think let it go. I think there's things that weigh us down. Hebrews tells us that. And so how do I do that? What does that even look like practically? And as Kristen, your sweet Kristen Campbell and I, who have not yet met, but have talked on the phone quite a bit.
Oh.
Love her. Can't wait. She was going to try and come today and couldn't.
She was really sad to miss.
But as we have talked about it and kind of brainstormed a little bit more about it, I think when Jesus shows up in your life, you automatically, I think when we see him clearly, however we see him clearly, you can't help but let go of that which you hang on to that's holding you back. You just can't help it because he's so captivating. And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to look at some places in the Gospels when Jesus shows up and once in the Old Testament too. And what did it look like to let it go? It doesn't really necessarily mean I untighten or unclench my fist, because sometimes I can't. I don't even know how. I'm held so tightly by something, or I'm holding so tightly. But Jesus certainly knows how to unclench our fists. And so when we encounter him, he tends to do it. So we're going to look at that.
I love that because we do. And especially we get caught in our brain. We start building these worlds and these necessities and these timelines and the what if. And a lot of times it's on fear. A lot of times it's on stress. And if, this has to happen, this has to be in order, this has to happen, for this to work out. And we realize that we've built this entire paradigm in our head of what has to work out, and we have not given it to God.
Right.
And And it's crazy how much we build without giving to God.
Right. And as we're building, we're praying to that end.
Yes.
Fix my kid this way. Change my marriage this way. And so we think we're diligent and we think we're praying fervently, and we are, but really what we're doing is we're just spewing it out to God. And it's the first step.
Right.
But if that's all we do, then we're never making space for really hearing him or listening to what he's actually doing.
I also think we spend a lot of time trying to perfect a picture that we hold on to of what everything should be.
Yes.
I need, and I, I look at my daughter and I can see it happening with me and my daughter. I'm like, you look so good today. Maybe if you just, have you tried these shoes, or wouldn't you like, and we do that with everything, and it becomes a list to God.
Yes.
God, if you could just make this better, improve this, fix this, train,
And sometimes it's ourselves. Fix me, change me.
It's not, right. And it's not about surrender to see what he can do. For some reason, we don't trust what he can do. It stresses us out for some reason. It's more like just asking him how to fiddle with our lives.
Right.
To get a higher quality of life.
Then it's like, who are we actually praying to?
Exactly.
I don't know that it's the God of Scripture that we signed up to follow.
Who are we? Who are we? Who is it? And that's been my question. Jennifer, who are you trying to please?
Right.
Who are you worried about letting down? And I've really been thinking, who is this that you're worried about?
The infamous they.
Who is it?
Like who's
cares?
they? They,
right.
yeah.
And
have you come to?
I think it's Roger Patterson.
Listen, he is a strong presence. Yeah. I can see that intimidation factor.
I mean, well, with supervisors in general, like it is hard. You do find yourself like seeking their approval because like by the nature of the hierarchy, like their approval does matter. Like it does
matter.
So
but
it's not like
super.
It's not like you're looking at someone who isn't important. You know what I'm saying? Like,
but I do think there's a part of a voice in your head that holds this position of talking and saying, this is not enough. This is not, this won't work. It's this voice and to get to the bottom of how has that been constructed in your mind? Where does that come from? And how do you let that go? How are you letting things go and allowing God to replace that voice?
Well, and I think when you're saying that, Jennifer, I think of in Genesis when Eve eats the fruit and then Adam eats the fruit and then they discover that they're naked. God says to them, who told you you were naked? And so I think it's really the same thing you're asking is who told you you're not enough? Who told you your life is not where it should be? Who told you whatever the thing is that we're trying to fix or control? When you really drill down to it, it's like, well, there's a voice telling me I ought to be doing this, striving for this, hungry for this, longing for this, whatever it is.
I fear a lot of times we're working our way towards the perfect post.
Oh,
I fear that we are not enjoying the process of anything. And that for me, I'm starting to like the Christmas card. I feel like we're trying to make the actual Christmas card our life instead of appreciating the messy process of it all.
Have you seen the Saturday Night Live sketch on the Christmas card? Okay, just Google it. Sorry. And I know Saturday Night Live is maybe, I may get y'all fired.
I've never heard of it.
Right. Well, it's a sketch comedy show and it's been around for 40 years.
It's exactly as old as I am.
But
I'm as old as SNL.
Yeah.
It's like honest Christmas card. I think I've seen it. It's
Have you
like
seen it?
They're being like
they
if
walk
you were
into their
honest on the
kitchen
card, yeah.
and they're like, well, look at this beautiful family. Anyway, it's very telling, but it's true. I think you're right, Jennifer. We're trying to be the perfect post.
And I think because we are in each other's lives more, we are posting, we are in the past, we didn't have that same intense drive, but now we do. Now we're getting the cards in the mail. We see the post and we're trying to create the post.
And you know what we're also doing is we're trying to create the messy post. Like I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm just going to let y'all in on something that's going on.
Yes.
But it's so perfected in the way we communicate it that it's still an image conscious. And listen, to no fault, we're all human and we all do this. But that's funny to me too. It's like we're the messy we want to portray.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. And in that, you're only perpetuating the idea that you have the post, that you have the perfect.
Right.
Yeah. Like when my husband and I, we have problems. Sometimes
We fought over the remote today, and it was hard. But he's so
sometimes
precious.
we wake up and we will miss our quiet time together.
Yes.
And the eye roll, you can hear it. It's
And
just
then,
like,
yeah.
what?
Yeah.
And so, but now people do they're like, we just want our lives to be messy. We want to be who we are. And then came along us holding up this idea of being imperfect, of being just who you are, of being a mess. And it still wasn't this whole redemptive, give it to God. Let God give it to him. He will take it and hold it. And, we're studying promises now with our kids on Wednesday nights. And we sat around and we talk about how many people have broken promises in your life, or how many times have you broken a promise? And it's interesting to me why are we so afraid to let it go? Do we believe that God will break his promises?
Ugh.
Why won't we? Why don't we do that on the daily? What gets in the way of that? Is it control? Is it, I don't know.
I wonder, I think it's all of that. I think it's fear that he won't keep his promises. What if he doesn't? I think it's fear of maybe he'll keep his promise, but it won't be the outcome I want. I think it's rooted in control.
Like a Shakespearean
which is rooted in fear.
Like when you ask a genie for 3 things before you know it, instead of $1 million, you have like a bag of candy. It's something really weird. You're like, oh, this is what I wanted.
This wasn't what I wanted.
Some twisted way. Do you find, Justin, that you have a hard time letting it go, or do you not really?
I think everybody has an aspect of their life where they can't let go of things. That's why that's the whole definition of rumination. It's like where you just your brain cannot shut off that moment or that thing. I think people would be lying to you if they say they don't do that with anything. I just think it varies from person to person. The things that keep you awake and keep you frustrated are not the same things for me, but there are things in my head. I'm like, gosh, what is happening? For me, it's a lot of like, and this may be pretty masculine, but it's a lot about pride. It's a lot about, not getting the respect I think that I should in a situation. And it's like, well, why am I not getting that? Or am I misinterpreting this? Is what they said mean nothing to me?
Right.
You overthink it. So where you may think maybe relationally, is this relationship broken or just messed up, or did I say something messed up this relationship? Mine is so much more about like people's perception of me. Like I know in my heart, I am this way, but if people don't see that, that's frustrating to me because like I take pride in who I am. And if they misinterpret something I've done, those sorts of things. So I think we all, like I said, ruminate and struggle to let go of things. I just think you have to find what that is. And you can't assume that everybody has that same thing that they can't let go of. Even in a room full of women, there's going to be 100,000 different things in that room that each woman in this retreat is going to be struggling to let go of. And so you do have to kind of talk in broad strokes, And so when you're trying to get the women in this retreat to think about this, what are some ways that you're going to get them to recognize the areas where they're struggling? Because some people will walk in and they know for sure what they can't let go of, and some people are going to walk in thinking, I don't worry about anything.
Yeah.
Like how do you coach or guide someone to a point where they can see where they're not letting go?
Good question. Well, I just immediately know I can't do it. Because you're right, Justin. Women walk in with a varying degree of issues. And to your point, a lot of them won't even know what they are. But I think I always say this, and this is another catchphrase, but let the word of God do the work of God. And so as I lift up who Jesus is, the Holy Spirit just starts to move and reveal. And I think of the woman at the well. She comes up to the well with the intention to get water, and Jesus is about to change her life, and he can't change her life until he finally says, go get your husband, which invites her to come clean. And in that moment, as she comes clean and says, I don't have a husband, and he says, you're right, you've had 5, and the guy you're living with now isn't your husband. It wasn't to shame her, but it was to get to, what is it? What is it? What is your well? What is the thing that you've been seeking life from? And Jesus had a way of doing that. And as you just read and teach that story, all of a sudden what your well is just comes to the surface because you're in the presence of God, and he just tends to do it. So there's certainly no formula or magical way that I can do it. But if you continue to just highlight the love of Jesus, he just does it. He really does.
I love that. I think that's so true.
And he does it in a way that's never shaming. Because I think women that are listening that think they may want to sign up go, oh gosh, I'm not going to something where they're going to make me have to be introspective and look at what I'm ruminating on. That sounds like a root canal. But trust me, when God moves, you want to be in his presence. You want to be there.
And it's very sweet.
Yes.
And it's always so much more merciful
Yes.
than I expect.
Oh, so
because
true.
there's part of you that really resists
Yes.
coming to that point where you're being really honest with God and you're a little afraid of what he will enlighten.
Yeah.
But it's always so sweet.
And it always moves you to freedom. The whole point
always
is to move you as you move closer to him. You moved in freedom.
Yes. And you're never
He
like
came to give us life. Yeah.
I really wish I hadn't gone to God about that.
Right.
No one's ever saying that. Never like, I shouldn't have given that to
Oh,
God.
I should
He really
keep my grip on it
he
tight.
fouled that up.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody's
exactly.
ever saying that. They're
Mm-mm.
always like, why didn't I go to him sooner?
That's right.
Why did I feel like I had to get all the way to this point before I just gave it
That's
to
right.
him?
I do want to speak too in favor of events like this. And so I was in student ministry for 10 years and we did a lot of events like this where you kind of make a special moment for students to encounter God. And we think of that with kids and students. I think sometimes we forget that adults need the same thing. It's this idea of a moment set aside that's different. It's got different speakers, different worship leader. You know, if you've never been to something like this and you're listening, this is really something you should try out and see how God might speak to you in a new way. You may say, well, I go to church every Sunday and I'm in a community group. And those are absolutely incredible things. And you should do those things. But these special moments where we bring in someone who is intentionally praying and seeking how they can impact you and those, how God can impact you, that hour is really valuable for our faith. We call them in scripture, Ebenezer moments, like this is what this can be if you're faithful to sign up and come. And so if you're listening and you're like, I don't know if I want to do this, just be faithful and try it. And cityrise.org/women is where you can register and learn more about it. I believe it's February 2nd.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is. Second, third, it's Friday night and Saturday.
But give it a try.
Also-
And it's great that it's in town. So it's not as big of a commitment of going away and finding someone for the kids. Like you can figure it out with your partner. And
I always enjoy getting to meet people or spend a few minutes with people that I never get to because our schedules are so crazy. And it's such a sweet time to kind of build some relationships. And Kristen has the best, cute little ideas. I mean, the fun things they do the entire time. It really is such a great event.
Yeah.
I can't wait. I'm totally looking forward to it. Now,
Yay.
you said that you went on a Young Life retreat. My child is involved in Young Life.
Yay.
We love it. It has been such a great experience for her.
My husband and I are on the committee. I was a leader throughout college and after college. And then my husband are on committee now in our town in Friendswood, Texas. But Young Life changed my life as a high school student. And so I love it. I'm so glad she's
It has been
involved.
amazing. She's also involved in Campaigner. She's involved here as well. But
My
the
kids
people
are
who
too.
have invested in her, I have just been incredibly impressed and just so kind and so good.
Has she been to camp?
She has not been to camp.
Make her
I
go
know.
this summer.
I'm afraid of camp.
Stop
I
it right now.
know.
You should go as a leader.
Well, she goes to our church camp.
which is a beach camp. Like it's
It's a
hard to
beach
compete with.
camp.
Like it's a pretty
Send
it's a
her.
pretty
I
great
can't
camp.
plug it enough.
All right, I'll have to
I
check
really
into that.
can't. It's so great.
She was with our church to camp and does a mission trip or two with our church, and so
Good.
we'll
She
have
can
to
do
look
all
into
of it.
that. She's graduating this year, so
I went
kind
as
of-
after my senior year.
you did.
Mhm, as a camper.
Oh my goodness,
And
that's so cool.
Oh, it was life changing.
The last time that we visited with you, you had written a book on forgiveness,
Mhm.
and I thought that was incredible. Here we are in another election year, about
Right?
to walk in this. What are some of your? How do we move forward? I think it's going to be a little bit of a tough year again. How do we move forward with our families that aren't even speaking or not even connecting because of political climate, difference of opinions? We've been through all of this. What are some tips from your writing that would help other people in this space?
Well, I don't know if it's from my writing or my own, like God working and my just working on me, but just recognizing what our battle is actually against. I mean, scripture's pretty clear. It's not against flesh and blood, but it's against the spiritual powers in the heaven, in the spiritual forces against us. And so oftentimes we think or we mistake our battle is against this party, or our battle is against this candidate, or our battle is against this neighbor. And the truth is, it's really, really not. You can disagree and disagree vehemently and hold to your convictions and still love. And so what my biggest tip for myself and my family is everyone is invited to the table. and we all have the same ticket, and the ticket is blood drenched from Jesus. It's literally that simple. And so I don't get to look at you, Jennifer, and because you vote a different way than me, think that you're dismissed or that somehow you're not worthy. And really that's what we're doing. And so it's the pressure's off, really, when I recognize it's really up to Jesus to sort out my wrong thinking, your wrong thinking, my right thinking, really what he's asking. Would you just love me and love your neighbor? Would you just do that?
I think that's a really great, that's so good. I think that the idea of coming to the table, if we had the humbleness of who, like how much we've been redeemed.
Yes.
If we saw ourselves as not just good people who love Jesus, but people who are the worst of the worst, who have been completely redeemed by a price we could never afford. Like that humility in our identity of Christ would go so far to giving us so much more grace for the other people who don't agree with us or don't believe
100%.
It's like, I'm so lucky to be here. I want to love you, be kind to you. Yeah. We don't have to.
Yes.
I love that idea of being humble. I think that's really powerful.
And a lot of times I think we misunderstand that and think that to be a good soldier, to be a good team member for Christ, whatever you want to call it, I've got to uphold these values. And I think it's important that we understand what Scripture's saying, that we walk in Christian values, for sure. So don't hear that. I think though that becomes the main thing and we lose sight of the person in front of us. And we think, when Jesus was meeting with the woman caught in adultery, he said, didn't anyone condemn you? No. Did anyone throw a rock? No. Well, neither do I condemn you. Now go and sin no more. And we get it wrong. We think, well, now go and sin no more and then I won't condemn you. And however we're defining it, our sin or someone else's sin, it could be literally the way they vote. We start to condemn and we don't have that right. He's not giving us that right.
And then before we know it, this person becomes the symbol of everything that we're worried about or frustrated or angry about before we know it. Yeah. They've become the face.
That's right. And they represent everything. Yeah, you're right.
And then at that point, forgiveness or moving forward is really difficult. And the person who can't do that is usually the one that, goes no contact. That's something that moves me into my next thing. They're really big into this whole going no contact. Have you heard that language?
Is that like cancel?
It's like when a family member is not performing or you've had enough, you're really frustrated. We've decided to go no contact. And that's like when
ghosting?
You basically cut them off. Yes. Oh. You don't go see them anymore. You're not in contact anymore.
Oh, wow.
It's called We Went No Contact.
Okay.
And it's like a real, do you see it, Justin?
Have you heard that?
I have so many opinions that we think. Okay, first of all, I do want to say, and talking about election season and stuff like that, I have a really practical tip, and it's not.
I want to hear
it's not going no contact, but I think it's protecting yourself. On Facebook, you can unfollow somebody without unfriending them. Yes. They'll still see your birthday. I think they even still see your posts, but you won't see their posts. So if you have someone and you can mute them for a certain amount of time, listen, I've been through bad election cycles and I was just wound tightly because of what I was seeing on social media. You can unfollow without unfriending. And suddenly my entire feed is literally just pictures of babies and cats and dinners, like food. Like the ones that were most offensively, like, and this is on either side of the aisle, just loud on Facebook. I was like, I don't need this in my life.
Right.
I don't need to be reading your thoughts every day because it's stirring up in me something that is not kind. And so that's very practical. I think that you can just unfollow or mute them for a season until it dies down. But then talking about no contact, I would love to hear why are you are you saying this is a bad thing? Are you saying there's no situation where it's acceptable?
I'm saying that I don't remember a time in my history where people have gotten this phrase no contact, where they just casually end a relationship.
I don't think it had a name, but did you have family members that would never come to family reunions? They would never show up to things. Like that's what they were doing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Now
Like,
they have a term for it.
It wasn't tied. I just want to
There's
say,
always been a cancel culture.
I'm just saying
Yeah.
it's not new to go no
It's
contact.
not
more
new,
covert,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
now
yeah.
we
now
have a
it's-
phrase for it.
Right.
And I believe that
True.
now there's a lot more talk around. This is why we went no contact. I think that people, okay, here's what I really think. I think that boundaries and protecting your boundaries and protecting how you feel and your feelings have become such a big deal that we're letting go of relationships that we've had all of our lives because of our boundaries. And I'm sad about that. I'm sad because I feel like it's healthier to figure out forgiveness. I think forgiveness is really powerful. I feel like putting 100% in.
But does forgiveness mean you have to like,
Mm-mm.
no, like, I don't think it means you have to
Well,
like,
you have to know
I
the
think I'm just sad at all of these relationships ending because I feel like probably some of those people who say
Yeah.
people are getting divorced for ridiculous reasons.
sure.
Well, you're saying it's kind of the first step is they just cancel or they
It's
just
like, oh, we just don't
That's
like
it.
this conversation.
It's
my parents
mostly
are-
it's mostly with parents. It is.
Yes,
Oh,
it's
is it?
absolutely. with
Yes.
parents are doing this with kids
No,
or
kids
kids
doing
toward
it to
parents.
parents.
Grown-up kids.
Grown-up kids
in their 20s. Dad's a big Trump fan.
Uh-huh.
We're going no contact. Mom is blah blah. Mom's a narcissist. That's another
Uh-huh.
thing. Once you've been identified as a narcissist, you're like persona non grata.
I do want to say some are valid though.
Yes,
There are some
yes.
Some are
people.
absolutely
There are some
valid.
parents
But-
that that needs to happen.
Well, or you can maintain relationship, but I always think of it this way: is don't get in the ring with them.
oh, sure.
Don't get in the
That's fair.
ring. It's not your battle. Don't get in the ring. So don't engage in the conversation. And so that's work that you've got to do internally. How do I live in peace? If someone's abusive,
Sure.
that's a whole different
Yeah.
ballpark.
Oh yeah,
But what you're saying, Jennifer,
absolutely.
I think,
Absolutely, and I guess when I mean boundary,
you're saying are really walls.
walls, and I don't mean obviously if you're being abused or you're in a situation that's inappropriate,
Whole
Right.
different.
absolutely get
Yeah.
out of that
Right.
situation. But I mean, and when we get irritated, frustrated, little comments, passive aggressive, gets to the point where we're
Oh.
like, we're done here.
Yeah.
It just makes me sad because we're making it harder to fight for these relationships. We find it much easier to find the people that we like, we get along with, we like all the same things, and these are my people.
Yeah.
And now we've lost out on all these people that God's put in our life.
Yeah. Well, no,
I know some people would really struggle with what I'm saying, and I get
No,
it.
it's but if you really think down, I get it what you're saying. Peter Lencioni, and I'm going to butcher this quote, so forgive me. You can look it up and find the right exactly. But he says, when there's conflict and you're pursuing truth, it leads to peace. But when you're not pursuing truth, it's just politics. And I think a lot of times the conflict, and I'm going to ghost you or I'm going to no contact, is you really you're not looking for truth, or you're not looking to maintain the relationship. You're just checking out. And that's politics. You can do that in your families or outside your families.
It makes me nervous that we're not fighting harder for the people in our life. And we're not, if you don't fit, I saw this one video where this guy's like, listen, guys, if you have conservatives in your life, if they're Republicans, it's time to let them go.
Yeah, that's pretty extreme.
Really?
It's time to let them go.
I will say that's extreme though. I don't think
That is
that's
so
I don't
extreme.
think the
But it is
bulk of
out
people
there.
on either side of the aisle would
I
say
don't
that.
think the bulk of people are saying
Right.
that, but I'm saying is we're marching into another season where I have friends whose children believe very differently than the way they do. And it's really sad. It's a hard season for people. And as I think through it, I just, I feel like we're this new generation is a lot more activist mindset than they have been in the past because they have a lot easier way to be connected, right? With each other. They can, in 30 minutes, they can throw up a big march. I mean, it's such an easier atmosphere to be more activist.
Yeah.
And then when that becomes your identity, then that becomes so much of who you are, then part of your activism is pushing out what doesn't fit.
Then I say for our listeners in particular, I don't think our listeners have a problem with cutting people out of their lives. That's not what's happening. But they may have someone who is doing that to them.
Yes.
And so for our listener, what would you encourage them to do if they feel someone pulling away from them over what they feel is a petty reason? How would, because you can only control yourself.
Sure.
I can't make someone not go no contact with me. How can our listener in that situation either continue to pursue or continue to nurture or to continue to be patient with that person.
Right. And that's why we
That's our bro, Laura.
Laura is a published writer.
Well, forgiveness is helpful. Yeah. Well, I just think you have to, I don't have all the answers to it, but it's if somebody's doing that to me, I think you can only do what you can do. And you can just say, man, I'm so sorry. If there's anything I need to correct, if there's anything I said harshly or did something, let me correct that. And then otherwise you can't control them. You know, you can, when scripture says, as far be it unto you, be at peace with all men, then just live by that. As far be it unto me. Do I need to apologize? Did I sin against them? Let me take care of that. And then the rest is, I've done what I can do.
I'll say this too, practically engage with that person if you can in a real situation, not by text or not by
be relational.
If you can get a coffee meeting with them, it's going to be so much more calm on every side, you know?
Sure.
And there's going to be some people that are hurt beyond repair. But I think when we relegate all of our communication to text and social media and, hey, I've been thinking about you. It's like, okay, no. Like why don't you get together for a moment? And then, you know, things are to come out more organically and maybe you can solve that a little bit better. I think.
Good. These are some really good insights.
Yeah.
I have friends who are walking through this, more than one, many
really
that are this Gen X upper millennial who are dealing with a younger generation.
Maybe you have problematic friends.
Maybe I need different friends. I didn't even think about that. Thank you.
Wow, food for thought.
Some of our listeners. So that's awkward. Well, Laura, I'm so glad to visit with you today. I can't wait to hear your upcoming teachings. I'm excited about what the ladies and myself, I'll be there, get to hear. And we're just so blessed to get to spend time with you today.
I'm thrilled. Thank you all so much. I can't wait to be with you back in February. So bring your friends, everyone come.
It's a hard thing to walk into a room full of women for some people, you know, and I want to speak to the introverts here that like, if you know anybody going to this, or if you're someone who's going to this who knows an introvert, would you pursue that person? Because some people like Jennifer can walk into a room of 75 women and feel like a rock star.
Yeah.
And I think there's some women and men who walk into rooms around people and they don't know what to do. No. But I do know that there are introverts in our communities that feel overwhelmed by group gatherings.
Yeah.
And so on that note, if you know someone who leans towards introverted, would you pursue them to be part of this event? Because they're not going to sign up. They're not like, yeah, I'm ready to go. You know, like you got to.
They really do struggle. And it's true. You feel like you don't know that you matter or that you're seen.
Right.
And people have to really make an effort to make sure that every lady is seen. Like we have to, and really, Olivia and I were talking about this. She's going to college and she said she heard some hard things about being in college. She got really stressed out about it. And I told her, I was like, Olivia, if you go to college and you expect for them to just hand you everything you need to be happy there, then that's probably not going to work well for you. If you go with the idea of, Lord, give me a group of people that I'm going to help get through this, and we're going to help each other, and we're going to lean on each other, then you're looking for a group that God is laying out for you to find and to connect with. I think that's how my mentality had to change. Because I used to get really nervous. I'd freak out about what I was going to wear. It would take me weeks to find a cute outfit because I felt like once I came in, people were like, oh, what are you wearing? That's not even cute. Where did you get that? Are those shoes? What? And I would become so in my head about it. By the time I walked into the session, I was like vibrating with stress. Like, I couldn't believe you couldn't hear me with so much insecurity because I wasn't in this group of friends, or I didn't know any of the leadership. And I guess I can go get coffee and nobody notices I'm here. So why did I come? And this outfit costs money. And I mean, I couldn't believe that the level I would get to come to this event. Wow. And now I still worry about what I think, let me look around and see who I can visit that feels maybe doesn't know as many people. And that shift was huge for me. And I'm trying to teach that to Olivia.
Well, an introvert or extrovert, your job. As a woman, it's like we revert to our junior high selves.
Oh, so
in big groups like that so quickly.
Oh, it's, yes.
But before you know it, there's a corner that you turn and it just, all of a sudden you just kind of get caught up in what God's doing there. And
Exactly.
it's not as critical, but it's super intimidating to walk in. I know that feeling too, even as an extrovert.
Well, and I think it's good for all women to know. In fact, when we were greeters at CP and I was like, man, we just don't fit in here. We don't know who our people are. And they asked Andy and I to be greeters. And so we started greeting, and I was like, not everybody feels like they have a place. It's a lot more common than I realized. It's a lot more common that people don't know that this is where they belong. And so I was like, I'm going to make it my job to just be the person that tries to make people feel like, hey, you belong here. I don't know. Maybe I'm talking too much about this, but I just want our ladies, you get it to where I want our ladies to feel loved.
Yes.
And that, and in that moment, I just really desire that for every woman, every person that comes to this retreat. I
do too.
Love the ladies when they get together. When God starts working in their lives, it's so meaningful.
It is.
So you guys have got to come.
Come on.
Come on. And Laura's pretty funny and really smart.
Well, can we figure out a way to get Justin there? Like, can you do AV or can you do just so he can be there too?
I mean,
I can put a comms request in, but he's
if you put
kind of in charge of comms.
Yeah, you can put a comms request for photography. I'll come.
Okay.
I'll have to.
Do it, Jennifer. I don't know how to fill out that paperwork, but I'm making a request.
Yeah, I love
I'll
it.
do that now. Well, I have one more question. And this is a little bit with time travel. If you could have a car that went either way, past, present, past or future.
I mean, I have a car that goes present. I already have one of those.
If you could travel and you could have unlimited trips, it would be unlimited trips to the future or the past. What would you choose? This is a basic.
I have to choose future or past?
Yeah, or an actual moment. You're saying it only has one gear. It
only has one gear.
The gear is
future
forward or backward.
But you can take multiple trips, but you'll always be only going in one direction.
Oh, I like this question.
Yeah.
Which one would you choose?
I mean, as a logical person, I'm like, well, the thing that could get me the most financially stable and profitable would be go to the future, because you could go to the future and find something to invest in and come back. So as a selfish, greedy, sinful person, I would probably choose forward, because like I said, there's really I can look in a history book in the past. You know, I like the present. There's nothing back there that I'm super interested in.
There's nothing need. There's no
super
real
interested
need
in.
for it.
And I guess if you're thinking greedily as well, you can go back in time and find something that, you know, is now worth a lot of money and buy it then and bring it back with you. So either way, you can be greedy.
He's really motivated.
I know.
His level, the line of thinking is so funny.
It's logical. It's like,
it's logical.
What is the most beneficial thing? And I would give it all to the Lord. I'd give all the money I made to the Lord. I would probably go forward. What about you, Jennifer?
Forward. I didn't even really consider going forward.
Wow.
Not even for a hot second.
I'm going back.
It was all past.
Wow.
Yep.
What's back there?
I think I've seen way too many Marvel what ifs in the cartoon version on Disney Plus to know that once you get that car popping in the future anywhere, there's just nowhere. I don't know. I think I've thought too much about the time in the future. I love the idea of going back.
But if you go back, you can mess things up.
I don't think we're going to take out that. We're going to take out that.
Okay.
We're just going to, you're not going back. You're not going to speech. I don't want to go back and change things.
You could go back to the future and not your parents.
Too, as a going forward, maybe you don't think about this just in aging. I'm tired of gray hair. Like done. Like get me back to my 20-year-old self and I'll be much kinder to myself back then and not complain one iota about my collagen filled skin.
Yes.
Right.
Amen. Let me go back. I think I would want to go back. I would want to go back and see my mom getting ready for her first date. I'd want to go back and see my grandparents, at their wedding. I think I'd want to, this Christmas, for some reason, it really killed me that I just don't have my grandparents around anymore. And my mom, here's what happened. Photo dump. My mom found all of her pictures and we went through all of them. And I thought, I would love to go back and be in every one of these moments and the past.
I love that question.
Wow.
For sure. Thank you. I can't believe I actually prepared a question before we showed up.
So is that your answer, the past?
Yeah, past for sure.
Why?
But I wasn't without hardship, but I had a pretty idyllic childhood and my teenage years I loved high school. So I don't look back in my past and go, I couldn't endure it. Like it was a lot of fun. And the lack of responsibility, and there was fun is the word that comes to my mind. And so I'd go back because there was a lot of fun. A
There
lot
you
of
go.
fun had.
That's great.
That's great.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank
We're so
y'all.
glad to
I
have
loved
you here
being
again.
here.
Yes. Thank you, Justin. And thank you guys. Tell us a little bit about how to get to the show.
Well, first of all, if you want to go to the women's retreat, cityrise.org/women, we'd love for you to check that out. Registration information is there for that first weekend in February, Friday and Saturday night at Westview Baptist Church in Houston. It's called retreat, but you go home and sleep in your own bed, which is honestly the best of both worlds.
Yes.
You can hang out with your friends and sleep in your own bed. But we'd love for you to check that out. If you enjoy this podcast, please send it to someone, rate, review, subscribe, like on YouTube. If you have somebody that you'd like for us to talk to, you can email us at podcast@cityrise.org.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Laura.
Thank
Thank
you.
you guys for hanging with us for the show. We look forward to seeing you again next week. And we hope you've had an almost amazing time on the Almost Amazing podcast.
Really fun with the landing, man. Thanks for listening to the Almost Amazing podcast from the CityRise Network based in Houston, Texas. CityRise is a partnership of church campuses, nonprofits, and missionaries devoted to lifting our city and the world by generously giving the gospel of Jesus Christ. For more information or to find a church campus close to you in the Houston area, visit cityrise.org.